call. We do this every single Sunday night where we get together on Zoom, everybody in the Patreon community, and we talk about different topics that are relevant to artists, creatives, entrepreneurs. And so I have a question for them tonight because everybody's a little shy or just doesn't have any good questions. I've just done such a good job of answering all the questions so they don't even got no more questions for me, which I'm totally down with. So those of you guys that are watching live, if you're watching this live, I appreciate you. Give this video a thumbs up. Let me know where you're watching this from. That helps us out a ton. But my question to the Patreon folks that are here, what is the biggest challenge that you are facing as a creative right now? We have producers in here, we have podcasters in here, we have rappers in here, we have spoken word poets in here. And the question for you guys is, what is the biggest challenge you are facing as a creator? I'm gonna let one of them throw their hand up while I eat my air fried shrimp, because I think this is an interesting conversation. I don't think we talk about the challenges that we face enough. So who wants to go first in a Patreon Zoom call? Bats. We're going to go to Bats. All right, give me a sec, Bats. I'm going to pin you up, champ. All right, Bats, what's the biggest challenge you're facing?
Oh yeah, bro. My biggest challenge right now is I feel like it's just coronavirus in general, and it's not the accessibility of being able to do stuff. Is because I have an autoimmune disease and I have siblings that have problems as well. So me going outside to or to go shoot a video is putting me at jeopardy and them in jeopardy at the same time. So that's been the biggest problem with me because I want to make sure I'm staying consistent, making visuals with every song that I do. But at the same time, I have to look at it like, it's the risk. Could I wait a year or so and then start going really hard when everything's open and making sure that my health is good and so is my family's health. So that's been the biggest problem.
There's a Dave Ramsey quote, and it goes something along the lines of, and I'm going to butcher it, and it goes something along the lines of, hey, if you follow these, like success has a system, and success has steps to it, right? In just about any capacity that someone approaches it. And he says, if you follow these steps, more than likely you will become successful, with the caveat that based on how much trauma or turmoil or tragedy one may endure, right? So that like we don't get to control if you get an autoimmune disease or if somebody in the family gets cancer or somebody gets hurt or something like that, right? So we can control the variables that we can control, but there are other variables that we can't control, and those variables can slow down how fast we are towards our goal. And so if you're like, yo, I know what the system is, I know what the formula is, but you have an actual restriction because you have an autoimmune disease, you can't control that. You can't control, you know what I'm saying? Like how your body can react if you're reckless
Yeah.
by going out there when you shouldn't. So is your situation where like you shouldn't be outside at all, or is it being outside safer than being inside?
I mean, yeah, kind of. I shouldn't be outside at all. Keep it a buck. Yeah.
Because of
So
COVID? Because of Corona?
yeah, like even like a simple cold can be like kind of bad for me.
Hmm.
So if I get that, that might be. So we don't know. So it's just safer not to do things like that.
Is it because now they're saying it's airborne and you're concerned about it potentially being airborne versus before you can go out, you were going outside, but you just weren't around people, basically? Like, because you were still going outside and pumping out a bunch of videos in the middle of everything, but it seems like now you're more cautious because do you feel like the science has changed and because it may be airborne and even being outside is a risk? Am I following you correctly?
Yeah, and also I don't have my own vehicle, so really my girlfriend she be she's taking me places, and at the same time like I don't know what she's everything that she's doing. So she works at
Mm.
Walmart. So I can get inside her car and then something I can get it and then nothing to happen to me, but then my little sister get it because she has something as well. So it's just so much variables, and plus I like yeah, it's a lot going on and I don't want to risk it too much because then that's selfish, I feel like.
So it's not even necessarily that you're being reckless. It's that you can't control what other people are doing. You can go outside and do stuff, but
Yeah.
who else holds the camera or who else drives you somewhere can prevent you
Mhm.
from or prevent you, could potentially, jeopardize your health. Yeah, wow, that's heavy, man. I didn't think about that.
Hmm.
What made you kind of become more cautious as of late? Because initially I felt like you were fairly active.
Yeah. Really, my father, he really had to make it. He's kind of like told me like you got to pay attention. Like why you not caring about? Because he's not the one that's rich. It's me and my little sister. So like, why am
Mm.
I not caring as much? Why am I being reckless? Why when I come home from work, I'm not instantly going hopping in the shower or something so I don't spread anything. So that's the type of
Mm.
things that like before we step in the house, you get shoes get sprayed down with ice because you just want to make sure everything we get groceries, we wipe down everything that can be wiped down. So we're just trying to stay very safe. We don't eat out or anything. So me even going to get in the car with my girlfriend, it's like him being lenient towards me because he cares about my feelings. So
Mm. That's heavy, man. That's definitely, you talking about challenges. That's a real life challenge. This man Bats can
yeah,
shoot his own videos, edit his own videos, make his own beats, rap, and has like a legitimate challenge of he really shouldn't be out and about and moving around the way some of us have the luxury to and are kind of taken for granted. That's heavy, man.
yeah.
Um, okay. What else? Who else wants to go? What are some actual challenges you're facing as a creative in this current climate? I think that's it's a really good one that he just brought up. Does anybody else want to chime in?
So there's not too much pause and silence. I'll go from yeah. So from a pod, and I'll speak from a podcasting perspective. I guess the most not frustrating, but maybe the part that's interesting, right? When you do live videos and YouTube, you kind of get the interaction, right? But most of my podcasts are either interviews or me discussing a topic. So one thing that I found difficult is to kind of stay motivated and engaged when like I can see numbers of who's
Mm-hmm.
listening, what countries they're in, but I actually don't get to interact with people that are bringing in the content, which is the purpose of why I make it, right? I don't just make it so people can listen to it and then so I mean that's one of the reasons I started the Patreon community as well, right? So even at the lowest tier, so that I know the people who are on the podcast, so it's like trying to actually capture. I mean, I got people who consistently listen. Like I know within 24 hours of me posting, I know like 18 to 20 states where my
Mm-hmm.
podcast is going to pop up. But like half of these states, I don't even know who's in that state. Like I don't
Mm.
know who this person is. So I guess podcasting when it's not like a YouTube interview video where you can see people commenting and interacting and then you put the podcast out. Um, that's one of the things. So I'm always toying with that idea. Like, should I be recording the video, which gives it a platform where people can communicate, and then also putting it on the platforms? But then it's like, I don't really like doing video or like editing video. Like I've been a sound engineer for a long time, so it's easy for me to record something, especially when I'm traveling and other stuff like that, right? So doing the audio has been effective. And I mean, the podcast is growing, but it actually bothers me from a creative perspective that I can't interact and engage with the people in the community that are taking in what I'm saying, right? Because I want to use those people who are responding to it to determine what new content I do, right, and to see what's kind of what's working and what's not or why it's working. One versus the other. Like one of the worst, and this is crazy, Ruslan. One of the worst audio quality podcasts that I think right now I'm on episode like 54, and I've recorded audio on a Bluetooth mic at a camp in northern Wisconsin, and it is horrible audio, but it is the most played episode on my podcast,
Mm.
and it's like and it's like the worst audio quality. Like I mean, you got to struggle to hear what I'm saying, and that's me editing it to the best of its ability. But a lot of people resonate with that. But so it's like how do you attach that? So I'm trying with the Patreon community, but that's the hardest thing for me to try to figure out what to create more for the people who are really listening, because I can't connect with them through the information I get from RSS feeds and stats on like podcast hosting stats. So.
That's a good point. So let me ask you this: what do you think is a solution to that?
So the one thing is the community, right? So I think tomorrow will be the second podcast that I aired that's actually promoting the Patreon community. So the one thing is to try to get people in the community, because then I see your name in the city and where you live. So it's trying to promote the community in that regard. And I think I think video may be one of the ways to kind of get people to engage in the content in a space where you can actually have more engagement versus like Spotify or Google Podcast or one of those. So I think the Patreon is one, and that's why I made the entry. I mean, my lowest level is like $2 because I don't really care about the money. Like I want people to sign up so that I have that community that I can communicate with the content that we're being created. So that's one, but then video will probably be the second, which would require require more investment and some more time. and yeah.
Well, video, you could do a $500 camera, $600 camera, and that's really all your investment. You know what I mean? And I think you're off the ground. So I highly recommend anybody in the podcast game to do video and to do lives, because it is content on top of content, and the more you're doing lives, the more you're paying attention to the chat. You can engage with the comments. You can bring people in and have conversations like we're doing right now, which then I can be more tapped into what people want to talk about based on the community. Like the community and the comments and engaging with people is what drives the content that I create. It's not just about what, you know what I mean? Like I talk about topics that I think are relevant for the type of people that pay attention. So I do highly recommend that if I were you, I would 100% get yourself a Canon SL3, make the investment and jump into the video side.
Yeah, because sure. I mean, I even have some. I mean, I've got an entertainment company, so I've got some equipment as well. Because I've got a T5i, and then we actually have a Black Magic as well. But my best friend always has it, who's a director. So if I can get him around here more to edit and to do whatever else, I probably would do a lot more video stuff, because I really do not like editing video. And I think that's probably one of my biggest apprehensions, is it's something I don't like to do. Which, like you said, if it's not easy or automated, it's like I'd record the videos and they'd all sit there, right, forever before they got edited and chopped up. But yeah. But what Canon did you just say, Ruslan?
Canon SL3, the Canon SL3. I'm either gonna upgrade all my cameras to the EOS R, or I'm gonna downgrade all my cameras to the Canon SL3. I'm gonna get one and like kind of walk through it and test it out. But the Canon SL3 on paper does everything I would need it to do. You can get just the body for around $500. Walmart even had a sale a couple weeks ago for $450. And basically what you want for a webcam is you want clean HDMI, and ideally you want a camera that can use the autofocus on the lenses so that it can do the nice blurry background. So for example, like this camera is a 50 millimeter. This is a $100 lens, but it's a nice camera and it creates a nice little blur behind me. Same thing with this one. This is a 2.8. And so you want a camera that could do a lens. And so you want the clean HDMI, and on top of the clean HDMI, you want a camera that can do the autofocus without the borders. So sometimes the camera will do clean HDMI, but it'll have these little borders when you do the autofocus, and there'll be a little toggle that follows your face around. You don't want that. And so Truther says, outsource the video. Someone like me would love to edit the video content for the low. Yeah, and I do that as well too, by the way. So I have somebody that I pay a couple $100 a month that does all my Instagram content. So I do videos, he chops them down as smarter videos, boom, we keep it pushing. And it's a good system. But the thing about the HDMI thing is you can give it it's just gonna look good. You know what I mean? And so that SL3 is pretty fire, and it's fairly inexpensive. And I recommend everybody just start with the SL3, start going live on YouTube through either directly scheduling on YouTube or through a service like Restream. And then you could scale that over to your podcast app. You know what I mean? You can scale that over to whoever you're using. And YouTube has a better discoverability, in my opinion. I think YouTube has way better discoverability for just about anything than Facebook or Twitch or the podcast app or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're more likely to discover stuff organically inside of YouTube. We meet, you know, people stumble across my stuff all the time who have no idea what it is that we do, you know? So,
Yeah. Okay.
thank you to Jordan for dropping a link. He said this is a good website to check out if a camera gives clean HDMI. Yes, the Elgato website. But yeah, man, and hopefully the thing I showed you guys earlier before I went live, Pastor Roy was helpful in terms of seeing.
Yeah, I like that, right? Because because that's one thing. Like, so right, because you got the intro video, right? You chop it in the middle, because then you can just pull it on. Like, I can do that. Like, that wouldn't, but it's like getting the setup and everything ready. Which even when I built this house, this office is set up to do a lot of that stuff if I want to do it in the future. So like, that's why this is my background. And there's like an entire television and a couch over here on this other side of the camera, where if I was doing an interview, and I've got wireless microphones and headsets and everything else already in here. But yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, who else? Does anybody got any questions, or is there anybody that wants to share their biggest challenge? If we got a question, we could totally move on to questions. But I'm asking the Patreon a question of like, what is their biggest challenge as a creative right now? So we had Bats talking about his lack of ability to move around, and Pastor Roy talked about just kind of figuring out his workflow as a podcaster. So let me know, and then you guys could just throw your little hand up, symbol up there, and then and we could also switch topics and go into any questions. All right, I'm gonna go to Jarrett.
Are you talking? Okay, you're good. You're good.
All right, yeah, you got a question?
Yeah, I was gonna like go on with like the COVID thing and like the biggest.
Okay,
struggle
let's come back to that, just because your internet's kind of wonky, and I'm gonna go to keynotes. Give me 1 sec. Spotlight for everyone. All right, well, let's go ahead.
All right, you can hear me, huh?
Yes, sir.
Cool, man. So my biggest challenge at the moment is kind of related to a video you put out either like last week or the week before, where you touched on perfectionism and like creative codependency, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. So like, it's kind of related, and the main issue is kind of to do with upskilling. So, you know, in creating music and creating a project, there's so much that goes into it. There's actually coming up with the songs, there's the production, and there's the mixing, mastering, packaging it, getting like the pictures done, this done, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, but like, I can do most of those things to a certain standard, innit? But being a recovering perfectionist, like, I've realized like what's in my mind, I might not always necessarily be able to achieve, and even just being okay with that, because sometimes it turns out better. But the issue that I kind of face is when I'm not meeting like a minimum standard, innit? So the way that you approached the topic of perfectionism like a week or two ago was kind of more from a existential standpoint. But when we're talking about like an actual standard, like, okay, this product as it exists isn't ready to go out. And on the codependency thing, for example, if I'm working with someone that maybe I feel they aren't as invested in the product as I am, and maybe they're just not getting my vision, and maybe I can't even find the help, or like so just for a practical example, a real example right now is just the mixing side of things. Like, I can mix to an extent, the producer I'm working with can mix to an extent, but I just haven't achieved that level that I would like. It's not in line, it's not congruent with my vision. So I need to go and source that. It's kind of all over the place, this question, but that's my main challenge right now. So it's just like the quality kind of thing, and not being able to necessarily do it all myself, but then also not necessarily being able to find the help to meet that minimum requirement, and just being, I guess, patient as well.
Yeah, well, and this is why I do recommend that people at least learn to like get to a certain place proficiently with their craft, right, in these different areas. I don't know if you ever think it's good enough. That's the flip side of being a perfectionist. Is like it may never be good enough. The mix may never be good enough. The videos may never be good enough for your standards if you have these uber perfectionists. And it can really be crippling in the sense of building momentum in a career because you're so romantically attached to your art that it never comes out. You know what I'm saying? Or you sit on it too long. Or by the time you are ready to put it out, the concept is dated. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, from a technical standpoint, my YouTube, the reason why my YouTube's grown and been so successful is I create with the urgency to release. And I had to force myself to just go live. If I just go live, I have to release it because it's already out to the world. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to figure out is like, how can I do the same thing for my art, for my music, where I'm creating with the very intent to share it with the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think if you could figure that out, it honestly, and I feel like it's not gonna be spending more time on a mix, spending less time and getting to the point faster, creating a vocal chain, a preset for your vocal that then it goes on every single song you make from now on, and then you go in and just make minor tweaks to it. You see what I'm saying? So like every session, every beat I make, everything starts with the same template, right? And everything is to the goal of exporting it. Like that's the goal with every time I sit down to create. I want to export a beat. I want to export the song. I want to export the verse. If I leave the studio with something to listen to, I feel like that's a win, and I'm more likely to share that with people.
For sure. So that kind of speaks to then.
Go ahead.
Kind of speaks to like the point that you drive home a lot, just about having a system in place. So then maybe you could just touch on how you came up with, I guess, developing that template, the steps to achieve that, maybe.
The steps to achieve that, in my opinion, I'm fairly proficient as an engineer. So if I'm a rapper, I know nothing about engineering or mixing. I think something I would do is, first of all, just word of mouth, shop around, see who is a good mixer from your word of mouth in your community, right? Ideally, someone that uses the same software that you use. So let's just say you mix in what program do you use? Keynotes?
Fruity Loops. FL Studio.
Okay. So if you just ask around, like, hey, do I know anybody that mixes in FL? Are there people that you know that mix? So I can think of a couple people that mix fairly well in FL. There's a group that I've worked with. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I just put out a record with these guys. Gosh darn it. Hold on, let me look it up so I don't sound stupid saying something. Sharp Dialect. Okay, Sharp Dialect does everything in NFL, right? And so reach out to someone from word of mouth that mixes NFL in FL. Send them one of your songs. Pay them to make to mix the song, but then pay them extra and say, hey, can you create this template so that every song could start the same way? And I want a vocal chain on my vocals so that every single record I start, I literally just turn on the vocal chain and it's the same sequence of EQ, compression, de-esser, effects, or whatever, right? And I want my beats to all come down to the same template. So that's step one. Is if you have a template, that makes your job easier because now you can at least get to a reasonable quality level. And then two, potentially you might hire that person back out and half the work is done because they are literally just opening up a file and making minor tweaks on it. So you can get the price you would pay somebody to mix it down versus I work in FL, I bounce every single stem out, and then I send it to somebody in Pro Tools. They got to do everything from scratch. They got to start the EQ from scratch, start the compression from scratch, right? You see how cumbersome that sounds? But if you get somebody that works in the same DAW as you guys, what are you guys doing? You're working towards export. You're working towards sharing. So again, I'm trying to learn these same ideas. I'm trying to apply these same ideas because I don't want to just release music. I have no desire to just release music. I want to release music with visuals right away. But not just release music with visuals, release music with visuals that can be promoted on the platforms they need to be promoted on so the music could touch more people. So we talked about this the other day with Bats and I think Bats and Bartholomew Jones. Hey, what if we made music with 15-second intervals in mind specifically for IG Reels? And we literally made our music with the intent of, ooh, if I can get this to pop on an IG reel, people are more likely to share it. If people are more likely to share it, it'll go to their story, and an IG reel plays right through somebody's story versus sharing just a 1 minute video. You see how, like, now we're really thinking.
Yeah.
Now it's not, I'm making a song because I'm a good artist and God gave me this gift to be famous for Jesus and make art for right? No. Dead all that. Let's make art with people in mind. Yep. And how does the consumer share music? Oh, it's actually in 15-second intervals. Why? Because if somebody shares it, right? It's like the SoundCloud feature back in the day on SoundCloud, the reshare feed, right? If you get people to repost all at the same time, then it'll drive it. So guys like Foggy Raw would drop a record and then text all their friends in their neighborhood and get everybody to hit that reshare button on SoundCloud. He finessed the SoundCloud algorithm. We could do the same thing with making 15-second videos for IG Reels and getting everybody to share it the moment it comes out, and now it's on everybody's story. And if it's good, somebody will see through that and potentially click through and follow you or whatever. And then you could do an Instagram ad. You could do you see what I'm saying? But IG stories, like, that's such an underutilized. See what I'm saying? So I'm thinking, how can I create, not just to release, how could I create, not just to make a music video, how could I create with the marketing component in mind so that every single piece of music that I make is optimally, strategically placed to touch as many people?
Yeah. So that's a very results-driven approach, which actually, if I'm speaking about minimum criteria, like, that helps me to even articulate and put it down. So it's like, okay, if I can achieve this with the thing that I'm making, then it's good enough. It can go. And then I don't have to worry about losing momentum and just getting lost in my own thoughts, like, is it good enough? Because my vision would be clear. It's not just about, does it sound amazing? Is it gonna hit the charts and just explode? Am I gonna be famous for Jesus, like you said, all of that rubbish? It's just like concise and clear goals. So yeah, that's something for me to think about. I think that would just help me to formulate that system and that template for myself. So yeah, man, appreciate that.
So I would say a very tangible step for you would be to reach out to people who mix in FL and create a better system for you to at least get your ideas out faster, and pay them a little extra to get your template set up. That would be something I would highly recommend. Start there and then start thinking visuals. While you're writing the song, think about the visuals and write the song, and see if you can even force yourself to write the song in 15-second intervals, meaning we used to say, your flow and cadence should change every 15 to 20 seconds. Now your flow should change twice every 15 seconds. Something should be different. Because again, we're just trying to capture that initial 15 seconds. One of the best ways to do this, bro, and maybe you got to take a step back from the traditional art approach and jump into the TikTok duet world for a while. Look at what people are doing with TikTok duets. Look at how many people are going viral and building massive music careers off a TikTok duet. Go on TikTok and just do a bunch of duets for a while and just get in the groove of making shorter, more focused content. You know what I mean? This is literally what my artist Paul did. My artist Paul started shooting, Paul Russell, he started shooting these vertical videos of popular songs. And those did well, but what really took off for him was him doing the duet videos on TikTok with, these different producers. You know what I mean? And so maybe that's something you got to step away from, and instead of being about what you want, go and see what is actually working on TikTok, and just go back to it with more fun,
I hear that. I hear that.
That's a good question, man. The idea of perfection is just such a crippling thing, man. Those of us that wrestle with it.
Trust me. It's a curse, man. I'm telling you.
I feel it. All right,
bro.
guys. Yeah, man. Thank you. Anybody else got a question, comment, want to chime in on this topic, or we could move on. Preferably somebody with decent lighting and decent internet, because my internet's acting crazy right now. Let me try to swap the Wi-Fi on the live stream. Gosh. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Let me go to Robert. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to pin you up here in a second. All right. Go for it, Robert.
So my journey is my struggle is like seeking artistry with a chronic illness, and so the struggle is I realize there's a lot of emotional turmoil when you're like striving for your dreams, you know. So and there's a lot of psychology when it comes to artistry, you know, because trying to market my own image, you know, and how do I market, like how do I make, and it's how do I make schizophrenia look good, right? That's like kind of my battle. How do I look like a superhero? How do I how do I market such a thing? And and it took a lot of emotional um, uh, you know work, because I looked at myself behind the camera, and it's hard work. I gotta Robert, you gotta get well, you gotta get better, and so that's something that I'm going through, and I find it rehabilitating, quite actually, because honestly I'm supposed to be working on resumes, but rather I'm working on artistry portfolios, right? And that's me, and 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 that's that. The battle is, how do I find a positive self-image, and how do I not get delusional about my dreams? How do I not get delusional about content? How do I not and how do I do the work? How do I get this done? So I started this year, and is a hard year, 2020, and I'm coming to realize, hey, this is gonna take longer than just a year. This is not just oh, you're gonna start making full-time money off of in 1 year. You have to get well, you have to figure out marketing, you have to figure out content, you have to figure out this, and I'm happy I went through the Ruslan boot camp, right? you know and that's been my 2020 so far.
So, give me 1 second, Robert. I'm gonna go here. Give me 1 second, please. What's up? Oh, did you like the stuff? Where are they going? Sorry about that, Robert. Okay, let me. So, Robert, I think that's an interesting question. So, one, I would look at it not in how do you make mental illness or schizophrenia look good, but how do you make it? How do you humanize it? I think you're looking at it from a different angle. You're looking at it to say, how do you make it look good? I don't know if you make it look good as much as you make it look human and you make it look relatable. How can you make something that is stigmatized relatable to the regular person? So Kanye did this brilliantly. If you listen to Kanye's interviews, he would use phrases like a brain sprain. Right? My bipolar is like a brain sprain. If you've ever played basketball and sprained your ankle, well, it's like having a brain sprain. Well, you see how that made that relatable, right? Like we all have had. If you do any type of sports, everybody's probably twisted or rolled their ankle at some point. So he started using language like, it's a brain sprain. My brain is sprained, and therefore, I have to be more delicate, or I got to take medication, or I got to get well, I got to give my brain rest and ice and right elevation, all the things you would have to do. He made bipolar relatable. How do you do the same thing with schizophrenia? How do you make it relatable? How do you make it something that people can see themselves in your journey? I think that is the better question, not how do you make it look good. You don't make it look good because it's too confusing. Unless someone has someone in there, are going to get it. So I think maybe you're asking the wrong question. How do you make it look more relatable? So with Kanye, everybody can relate to being injured to some degree as an athlete. A lot of people can relate to feeling low and being sad. And a lot of us who are creatives or who drink a ton of caffeine, like yours truly, can relate to the highs that he probably faces when he's on a manic episode. You see what I'm saying? So he just took something that is so stigmatized, which is bipolar, and we've really, as a society, kind of frowned down upon people. I mean, I think we used to give lobotomies to people with bipolar, I believe. Don't quote me on that, right? Back in the day. He completely destigmatized it and made it human, to the point where he does certain things and people just go, well, you know what? He's just having an episode. You got to have some empathy on him. You know what I'm saying? Right or wrong, he's literally changed the conversation about that. How do you do the same thing? I think the answer is, how do you tell that story in a way that's relatable? 1, 2, how do you, this goes back to the skills thing, Robert. I got to push it back on you. What skills do you have to do the actual storytelling, right? Do you have the ability to make videos? Do you have the ability to create graphics? Do you have the ability to make short films? Right? Kanye has brilliant ability levels, elite top 1% skill levels at production and rapping. Therefore, and directing and fashion design. He's literally in the top 1% of multiple skill fields. So what does he do? He uses those skills to better articulate what it's like to have bipolar. We all relate and feel for him and say, yes, we need to be more empathetic and advocate for people who have mental illnesses. So the blueprint's right in front of you. I think the disconnect is, Robert, are you putting in the work, or what barriers are keeping you from having your own setup to shoot your own videos and edit videos and release videos on a regular, even if they're 15-second videos for IG Reels, to shoot music videos, to shoot photos? What's keeping you from that? I think that's the deeper question. What is keeping Robert from developing the scarce skills to actually tell the story? That's the right story to tell. How do you make mental illness more relatable? But once you know that, you still got to go out there and tell a story. I still got to figure out how to use all this equipment. You could have all this equipment at your crib, but if you don't know how to connect it and use it, it's completely useless to you, right? So now we all have the equipment right here. The equipment's right here, guys. All you need is a modern phone, a phone that's a year or two old, and an app on your phone, right on your phone, and you can make films, right? So what's keeping you back from doing that? And I'm asking you that actual question, Robert. What's keeping you back from doing that? Why are you not doing more visual stuff if you know everything is visual?
Some of the pushback is all my friends are stuck with Corona life. So whatever that means. Meaning everybody's stuck at their job or at home, and they ain't really trying to go out. So needs to get right.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I lost you for a second. You said everybody's stuck at home. You said everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah. I don't have anybody to hold the camera just yet. So I'm pretty much a one-man crew. So I've been laying low and watching a lot and thinking about the possibilities, but also I have life, so I gotta be well. Also I gotta manage working a job with chronic illness. I have to manage a household. So I'm not just exactly being lazy. So I understand. Like I hit a threshold in the storytelling, and I was like, all right, let me camp out here, and I see where I need to go because all my friends are doing it. The whole crew in here is all in video right now, and I'm the one laying low and watching, So I kind of so I'm working on the job, working on life. So life happens during artistry. So
So let me ask
you
you a
know,
question. So it sounds like the biggest challenge you have, the biggest tangible challenge you have is you don't have anybody to hold the camera. Is that a fair assessment?
yeah, I don't have the skills for video yet.
Okay. So have you looked up people who shoot their own music videos or shoot their own vlogs and they don't have anybody to hold up the camera? Have you done some investigative YouTube journalism in that regard?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so that's the assignment this week. That's a very tangible. Robert, you walk away and I want you to find some stuff because I actually could use this help. Find some stuff, do some research, and find people who shoot their own vlogs and they don't have a camera person, who shoot their own music videos, who shoot, and they're literally no one holds the camera, and what techniques are they using. And I bet you there's at least a dozen people doing it at a pretty quality level that we wouldn't even know that they didn't have anybody not to hold the camera. Montel Fish is one of them. So you can start with Montel Fish's videos, right? So I think that's a very tangible walk away. Everything else you said is time management. It's existential. It's stuff that's in your head. It's responsibilities. All that stuff is reasonable. But guess what? We make time for what we view as a priority. So if you want to tell the story and humanize mental illness, which is what we said the objective is for Robert, that's awesome. That means you got to make that a priority. And I'm telling you, well, to get from there to here, you have to develop the actual skill set to do it. You don't need a computer. You don't need $1,000 camera. You could use all that, and all that stuff will make your life easier, but you got what you need. It's right in your hand. So what stuff can you watch? I want you to do some research. Find a couple different creatives on YouTube who do all their own stuff with no crew, nobody holding the camera. And guess what? That stuff might inspire you because you see Montel Fish and you're like, wow, he's doing this. Let me go try to make a Montel Fish type video. You know what I mean? You can make those videos. It's going to take you some time. Yes, the learning curve is going to be hard. Yes, it's going to suck. Yes, you're going to get frustrated. Yes, you're going to want to start and quit and start and quit and start and quit. But my question is, what's the alternative? Like, is the alternative working for you? Like, do you like the alternative of not actually jumping in and trying and exploring? I think you got to just start, bro. And I think that's the tangible thing is I want you this week to go and look at some guys that don't have a video guy and are just completely doing everything by themselves. So I want you, Montel Fish, Casey Neistat, those are a couple names off the top. No camera, award-winning filmmaker that is very difficult for any of us to be that good out the rip. But Montel Fish is very good too, but I guarantee you there's folks on all sides of the spectrum. That's what I would highly recommend you do. And first of all, it's about how to humanize mental illness. That's the first thing, maybe a different paradigm shift. Then go and actually look at some people doing it with the same resources that you have access to. And then after that, it's like, well, is it a priority or is it not a priority? You know, because I believe we have just enough time in the day to do everything we need to do that's a priority. Unless you have little kids, you know what I'm saying? You got a brand new baby. Like those things are different. You know what I'm saying? You got a brand new baby, you got an ill relative, brand new baby, a job, that's different. But by and large, the majority of us, whatever we want to be a priority, we can make a priority. If you want it to be a priority, if you truly desire it for it to be a priority. And I think you do. I think your deeper desire, Robert, is to make this a priority. And so now I'm just trying to give you some legs of some actual tangible stuff you can do to say, okay, let me go and do A, B, and C this week. Step one, go and watch a bunch of stuff. Just get inspired. Just start dreaming. What would a dope vlog look like? What would some dope content look like? When is Montel Fish shooting his stuff? What time of day? What does the lighting look like? Just dream for a while, right? Then look at some other people. Get inspired. And then say, okay, let me go and make a video just like Montel Fish or just like whoever. And just copy people for a while, bro. Just copy people for a while. Like until you find your own rhythm and your own voice. Is that something, do you feel like that's a reasonable degree of like, here's some instructions for Robert to try this week?
Yeah, thank you.
Word up. I'm looking forward to it, Robert. All right,
Appreciate it.
let's keep it pushing. That's a really good question. Let me see. I'm going to go to Jordan. If you guys got a question, feel free to chime in. Give me 1 second, Jordan.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
All right, I'm sitting with my man Jordan. Go ahead and jump into your question, boss, or your comment.
All right, so this is kind of talking on the subject you were asking about, like creative struggles, I guess. Mine is not a bad struggle to be in, but it is a struggle that I'm going through right now. So I just put out my, an instrumental P at the beginning of the month, and after I did that, I had this burst of creative energy. but I didn't know where I wanted to go creatively, like in regards to music. So I've been like in this weird stage of like wanting to be more experimental, and then kind of being like, okay, well, do I want to do more like instrumental stuff, or like be more of like a producer with artists, and trying to figure that out. So I'm just like in this weird space where it's like, okay, well, what do I do next? I know I want to, like, I have this creative energy that I want to let out, like musically, but I just don't know where to go next. Thankfully, I'm not being quiet during this time, just because I've been doing YouTube, so I'm still putting out YouTube content. But that's kind of like, that's not really like that's just kind of like keeping me like active, so I'm not just silent. I didn't just put out the EP and I'm like, okay, it's out, and then I just disappear again. But I'm just trying to figure out where I go creatively right now.
So what is the like? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Are you saying like, do you press into the putting out beats more, or what are we talking about?
So basically, I'm kind of in this weird middle ground where it's like, okay, am I going to focus more on being a producer artist, where it's like, okay, my beats are my songs. It's not like a beat that I'm like, hey, I have beats for you to rap on. Or am I going to go more in the producer direction of like producing for artists? And I'm just kind of in this weird middle ground, because like creatively, I'm kind of all over the place right now. And I'm just trying to figure out how to focus on one thing and what I need to focus on. So it's just like,
why do you feel like you have to focus on one thing?
Not necessarily feel like I need to, but I don't feel like I have a direction right now, basically, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just kind of aimlessly making stuff and like, okay, well, I want to do this now. And then all of a sudden, like 5 seconds later, it's like, okay, well, let me do this kind of thing, or I'm just jumping around a lot. So, and it's like, to me, that doesn't feel productive, I guess. I don't like not feeling like I know what I'm doing. So it just makes me feel like I'm making music, but it's not being productive in that process. It's just kind of like, it's not actually going in a certain direction. It's just kind of like jumping around and kind of like starting at square one and then jumping over here to square two, but then jumping back to square one and jumping over to the other, to like square two in this other direction. So like not really going anywhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think some of that is good. Some of that is you exploring. Some of that is you experimenting and seeing, right? You're trying out different skills. You're trying out different things, right? I wouldn't be upset about that. I think that's a good thing. You're experimenting, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not? You know? If we're talking from hey, let's just strictly talk about career building, right? Like, we're just gonna talk straight career building. Be a producer artist. Primarily build your stuff around you, the producer artist, and then produce for other artists as well. I don't think that's a false dichotomy. You're putting a choice somewhere where there doesn't need to be a choice, in my opinion, right? Yeah. That's like asking me of like, you know, do I want to be? That's like do you want to be a producer or a rapper? That's like asking me, do I want to be a producer or a rapper? That's a false choice. I don't have to choose one or the other. Technology is easy enough. Everything is easy enough where I could just go, right? So, from a tactical standpoint, business standpoint, 100%, you should have your own followers on Spotify. You should have monthly listeners on Spotify. You should be working stuff on Spotify. Every beat you land with someone who you care about, your name should be as a primary artist on that beat to build your monthly listeners. That's, to me, that's a non-negotiable if you're a producer in 2020, because the placement game is so finicky. It is so finicky for the placement game. So your options are play the placement game, which is a goofy game, or play the BeatStars YouTube type beats game, which is how long is that thriving? How well is that going to thrive? I'm not in that world, so I'm not going to sit here and give an opinion on something I don't know about. I'm just putting out questions. So that's your first option, is let me go play the placement game, which is way more about proximity, who you know, who you're around. If you're Kendrick Lamar's cousin, you're going to get placements on a Black Panther soundtrack. Shout out to Baby Keem, right? If you're not going to get those placements. So that's nepotism. That world is, to me, nepotism. Not literally nepotism, but with Baby Keem, it is literally nepotism. But that's nepotism in the sense that it's about who you know and where you're at, right? The second is YouTube algorithm, type beats, BeatStars, right? The third is be the DJ Payne, Curtis King guy, right? I'm just going to give people value on production, and hopefully I attract some rappers and sell some beats that way. Or I don't know. I don't know how their revenue streams, or I do a course or something, right? No hate on any of those guys. I love all those guys. And the fourth option is, dog, be a freaking fire producer that is standing on your own too, building your own thing. And you could do all those other things, right? But you can't be, oh, I'm the let me be thirsty to get placements guy and work with artists and be your own brand. Like those two are incongruent. You know, you can't be that and that. You could be this and that. So be this and all those if you want to be this and all those, right?
Okay.
But that would be my recommendation from a business standpoint. Keep dropping your beat EPs. Drop beat EPs and then find a rapper to just give you a 16-bar verse somewhere in there, tuck that vocal, so it's just more of an aesthetic and a vibe and less of like a song, right? Like explore and try different things. That's going to take you, in my opinion, this is completely my opinion, that's going to take you way further than trying to be the guy who's trying to get a placement, who's trying to be popping on BeatStars, right? And that was the other route. Was like the ClickFunnels, Legion Beats, pay $30 a month for this many beats and that whole world. Which I'm not, no hate. I don't know how folks get their bread, but that's another option. My thing is always going to be Jordan should have his own brand and should be his own autonomous human who is not dependent on any other human to eat. That's just the value system I live on, unless you're going into the corporate world. But as an entrepreneur, indiepreneur, intrapreneur, whatever you want to call it, you should be self-sufficient and then partner with people when it makes sense to partner with people. And have a BeatStars page. It doesn't hurt you to have a BeatStars page, but have a BeatStars page. It's $100 a year or something like that. You know what I mean? Do the type beats thing. So I don't know. That would be my recommendation. Is bro? Yes, I think you should be a artist producer. That changes everything. Like I love what Stolen Drums is doing. I always point people to Stolen Drums. I think that is the prototype for the producer in 2020 and beyond. Is the guy that makes the beats, the guy that has his own pop and following, who's consistently putting out stuff, getting on playlists, making money directly off DistroKid, and then collaborates with the rapper. And then maybe does a whole album with the rapper, right? Like, think about what Kanye and Just Blaze did. They had their own brands, right? A Just Blaze, DJ, those guys, the most iconic guys who are still around today had their own brands, right? So, not to say that there aren't people behind the scenes, but I don't know. That would be my advice, bro. If anything is like, build your own thing, you know? And keep putting out your own EPs. And build your own Spotify. Like literally, like watch all those Andrew Southworth videos and build your Spotify followers. Your goal should be 1,000 Spotify followers by the end of the year. How fast can you get there? And then 10,000 followers, and then 20,000 followers. And then again, if you look up and you're at 50,000 Spotify followers because you've just crushed it, goodness gracious, you know how much leverage you then have to work with artists, to sign artists potentially, to partner with artists. Like, you got all the leverage in the world because you actually have an ecosystem you've built of people who care about your art.
Yeah, true. That makes sense. Yeah. I like that approach. And that's kind of where I've been drawn towards a little bit. But then I still have like the artists that I was working with beforehand that was kind of like making me feel a little bit guilty to be like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing now. But at the same time, I don't want to like just not do my own thing because I feel guilty that I'm not doing things for other people. So
do you feel like you can't do both?
But usually what just ends up happening is I end up being the everything for everybody situation because I'm the most capable to be able to like do video, do engineering, production, all that stuff. And some of the people that I work with don't really want to pick up other skills and stuff like that. So it's just like kind of like this weird, it's more, I guess it's more a friendship situation, I guess, or like collaborator situation where I'm like at this like weird middle ground of knowing where I need to go and then knowing where everybody else is at and knowing that like we're not in the same place right now, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, you sound like the smart kid in the group in high school where people kind of deferred everything to you because you were capable. But then you just sit there and get frustrated because you didn't speak up for doing all the work.
Honestly, I was homeschooled, so no.
Okay, so you don't remember that dynamic.
Yeah, but I low-key probably would have been that kid.
So. Some of y'all know, some of y'all public school kids know being that kid where everybody just kind of defers to you and you just get all the work done in the group project.
Yeah. Also, it's a problem because like it's kind of an issue where I try to let other people do stuff and they just don't do it right in my mind, and it frustrates me. So then I'm like, okay, let me just do this because you're not gonna do it right. I know what we're doing. I know what needs to be done. So I'm trying to stop that because I need to let people figure things out on their own. So, yeah.
That's what's up, man. Word up. Well, hopefully that was helpful to you, brother.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in before we start wrapping up? Shout out to all you guys watching on YouTube. If you want to hop in the call, we're gonna start wrapping up soon. But you can this pinned up. You can sign up for the Patreon. I know the internet's a little glitchy. I don't want to stop it. I'm actually gonna contact Cox, because I literally have the most expensive internet that they have available, and this still is happening. It's still frustrating. So my apologies to all you guys. Anybody else want to chime in? Sweet. That was good. Glad it was good, Wayne Classic. Wayne Classic, man, I'm telling you, bro. Telling you, man. You got it, bro. Wayne Classic got it. I feel like you have all the skill set to pull that what we're talking about off. So does Jordan. Jordan like shoots videos and literally does it all, So it definitely positions the producers to be able to do everything and do it at a great level. So. I'm literally, I got the Cox thing pulled up trying to find their customer service thing, and I can't. This is so frustrating. Connection problems. I'm just going to say connection problems. Anybody else want to chime in? You guys got any other questions, topics? No? Sweet. Man, we crushed it tonight. Goodness gracious. Anybody else want to share about challenges they're facing in terms of being a creative in 2020, challenges that you're facing right now to get your art to the next level? CenturyLink is 1/3 of the cost of. The thing about CenturyLink is I literally, in this area, we only have Cox. Trust me, I've been down this road before. I didn't want to have anybody else but Cox, but this is all we have right now. So I just kind of got to grin and bear it. But yeah. All right, sweet, man. Well, listen, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Those of you guys that are watching this live, I'm going to go offline with the guys and see if there's any offline topics, guys and gals. And if you guys want to hop in for the last bit of the call, you can. We'll be offline for a little bit, and then we'll be done for the night. So appreciate everybody